world leaders are absolutely furious at Donald Trump and his dastardly regime, and they are now coming out in public and they are calling him out. They are calling out his weakness, and I think everybody's recognizing what an utter failure that meeting was, not just with Putin, which was just total humiliation for the United States, but the dog and pony show that was that meeting with the European leaders that Donald Trump exited so he can call Vladimir Putin on the phone and get instructions from Vladimir Putin about what to do. How embarrassing. Folks, there's no ceasefire, which Donald Trump promised he was going to do, or else there would be serious ramifications against Russia. So that didn't happen. There's no trilat set, no trilateral meeting between Russia, Zelensky, and Donald Trump. Putin never wanted that to take place. And there are no security guarantees that Russia is okay with in Ukraine. That was always BS. And we've always been calling it out, despite our own propaganda media in America saying, oh, Donald Trump got security guarantees from Putin. No, he didn't. What Donald Trump got from Putin was basically Putin dominating Donald Trump rolling out the red carpet for Putin. It was so utterly disgusting, literally with our own soldiers on their knees. So here's what French President Emmanuel Macron just had to say. And he goes, basically, he calls Donald Trump an idiot. Here, watch this.
Several of us told him, you were speaking to President Putin, he was bombing Ukraine. So this, of course, shows the necessity to stop the massacres, the necessity for a truce, and it also shows at some point the facts reveal the intentions. That's all. Today, Russia, in fact, continues the war, intensifies it, wages war against Ukrainian civilians as well, and gives no signal of sincerely wanting peace. And the experience we have over the last 15 years with Mr. Putin, President Putin, in his approach, is that every time he can win by war, when he thinks he can win by war, he does not negotiate peace. That's the reality. That's why I say, and I said again yesterday, you have an American president, European presidents, Ukrainian presidents who want peace. For my part, I have the greatest doubts about the reality of a desire for peace on the part of the Russian president, because as long as he thinks he can win by war, he will do so. And his ultimate goal is to take as much territory as possible, to weaken Ukraine, and to have a Ukraine that is not viable alone or within the Russian sphere. This is quite obvious to everyone. And so, our objective is simple: to have peace as soon as possible, to uphold international law and Ukrainian sovereignty, to minimize territorial losses for Ukraine, and especially to help Ukraine resist any new aggression, to have a Ukraine that has chosen Europe, to be able to continue choosing Europe freely, and to guarantee the security of Europeans. And these are the famous security guarantees we need for Ukraine today and tomorrow, and for us, Europeans, because it is our security at stake there.
Then in Canada, we saw an important meeting between the Prime Minister Carney and the Premier of Ontario. Watch as they kind of meet Doug Ford and Carney. There was a more extensive meeting, but let's play this clip.
I know you're a busy man and getting a lot done since we saw each other last time. And I'm going to take this opportunity to congratulate you again on your leadership, obviously, of this province, but also of the Council of the Federation at a critical time for the country. The work of the Federation itself, but also the work of the premiers with the federal government at a critical time for our economies has been essential. And je voudrais saluer le leadership du Premier ministre Ford de l'Ontario et puis du Conseil de la Fédération. Pendant un temps crucial pour notre pays. We've got a lot of work to do on major projects, on affordability, on security in our communities. And I think we're working well together, but we've got more to do and get it done, and we're going to have a good conversation to move forward.
Good. Well, I look forward to it, and thank you, Prime Minister, for having me by. We're going to have a real productive meeting here. And as I mentioned to the Prime Minister and the Premiers before, we know President Trump's unpredictable. We have to find out what we need to do to make sure that we create the environment and the conditions for companies from around the world to continue investing in Canada.
Yeah.
And we'll have that discussion. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Now, India is absolutely furious at the Trump regime after decades and decades of the United States trying to cultivate better relations with India, trying to push India away from Russia and China towards the United States, which presidents have done before Trump regime. Donald Trump accepted Bitcoin and investments in crypto from Pakistan, India's enemy, and then Donald Trump basically became a Pakistan fanboy rather than the world's largest democracy or oldest democracy in India, one of them. Donald Trump likes Pakistan. He loves authoritarian leaders. That's what's going down right there. And then Donald Trump continues to try to take credit for bringing peace to India and Pakistan. And India's like, you didn't. Can you just stop freaking lying about that? You had nothing to do with it. But anyway, this was from India's media, where they're like, at this point, India is just saying, we're going to buy more oil from the people you don't want us to, because we're moving away from the United States towards China. Here, watch this.
You know, would one be calling this as a big message at this given point to the United States from India that, you know, we will not be bullied around in terms of who we choose to trade with?
Now, I know this is not getting a lot of coverage in any other corporate news, but I focus a lot on how Donald Trump's destroyed the relationship with India, because you're going to see that trend of these countries moving more to China. Countries are de-risking from the United States and they're moving towards China at this point, where they used to de-risk away from China. Here is the president of Finland, Stubb. Here's what he has to say. And again, very clear how pissed off he is at Donald Trump and what went down at that meeting. Here, play this clip.
It's personal to you, and not just because you happen to be the president of Finland and you've got the largest land border, all those things that I keep repeating. I mean, it's personal to you. Your father, your grandfather were both born in cities that Finland was forced to cede to the then Soviet Union, cities that are part of Russia now. So, I mean, do you have any doubts about Putin's ambitions when it comes to expanding Russian territory?
Well, I mean, we've seen that in both Georgia and in Ukraine. But, you know, I keep on stressing the basics of it. So statehood is based on independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. And after World War II, which for us was the Winter War and the War of Continuation, Finland retained independence, unlike, for instance, our Baltic friends, unfortunately. But we lost sovereignty to decide, and we lost territory. But the difference there is that at that time, Finland was alone. But now Ukraine is not alone. And that's why I think it's so important that all of us, both Team Europe and Team US, keep on working for the independence, for the sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of Ukraine.
And again, just think about what these Trump regime sycophants are saying, like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just going on Fox and just like utterly like mocking India, like attacking India, you know, in no uncertain terms. Play this clip.
You know better than anyone that the Russian economy really isn't strong enough or big enough to carry on a sustained war. I mean, certainly not indefinitely. Couldn't do it without the help of India, buying mostly oil. Could not do it without the help of China, which is providing the bulk of the support to Russia. Now, India has gotten hit with secondary tariffs, which I think is very positive, put them back on their heels a bit. But China really is the big contributor to Russia's current economic stability. Given that, why haven't we put significant secondary tariffs on China for what they're doing to help Russia?
Well, a couple of things there, Laura. One, China had always been buying Russian oil. So in 2022, 13% of their oil came from China, and now it's 16%, and they want a diversified oil supply. India, on the other hand, got about 1% of their oil from China in 22. Now it's up to 37%. So they're doing what I call the Indian arbitrage. They're buying cheap Russian oil, selling petrochemicals back out. Much of that is going to the richest families in India. We already have very high tariffs on China, and now India is going to see what it feels like.
But China buys an enormous amount of ag from Russia as well. and they are the biggest supporter of Russia. Without China, Russia couldn't be in this war. Do you not agree?
I agree. They've $15 billion minimum in dual-use technologies and other support that I'm sure we don't know about.
And again, here's one of Fox's top propagandists, Jesse Waters. Here's what he had to say.
The Europeans were sitting around the Resolute desk yesterday like they were waiting for class to start. Trump was giving Europe a geography lesson. He even put up the big, beautiful map and sent it home with Zelensky as homework. Now, if Zelensky can read a map like Trump can read a putt, we'll have a deal in no time.
And I've showed this clip before, but just to remind you, because Donald Trump says it all the time now. Donald Trump's like, I solved 8 wars. I deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. India and Pakistan would have nuked each other. The world wouldn't exist if it wasn't for me. Anyway, we've showed this side by side before, but you need to see it because it deeply pisses India off that Donald Trump continues to say this. And then Donald Trump's become closer to Pakistan at this point than India. Here, play this clip.
I think the deal I'm most proud of is the fact that we're dealing with India, we're dealing with Pakistan, and we were able to stop potentially a nuclear war through trade as opposed through bullets. Normally they do it through bullets. We do it through trade. So I'm very proud of that.
Pradhan Mantri Modi ne Prime Minister Modi clearly told President Trump that during this entire episode, there was never any discussion at any level about an India-US trade deal or US mediation between India and Pakistan. The discussion to halt military action occurred directly between India and Pakistan through existing channels between both armies and was made at Pakistan's request. Prime Minister Modi firmly stated that India has neither accepted mediation nor does it do so and never will do. There is complete political unanimity on this subject in India. President Trump understood the details explained by the Prime Minister and expressed support for India's fight against terrorism. Prime Minister Modi also said that India now sees terrorism not as a proxy war, but as a war.
The American dream has changed. Forget the white picket fence. For most Americans, the real dream is getting out of debt. If you're feeling the pressure from rising prices, mounting credit card debt, and just trying to stay afloat, I want you to know that there is a way out. Done with debt. They have one goal: break you free from debt permanently. They're not pushing loans or bankruptcy. Instead, their tough negotiators go straight to your creditors, slashing what you owe, wiping out interest, and eliminating penalties. They don't stop until your debt is gone. And the best part, most clients see more money in their pocket in the first month. You've worked too hard to let debt steal your future. With Done With Debt, your dream of being debt-free is actually possible. Visit donewithdebt.com. Talk with one of their experts. It's completely free, but some of their solutions are time sensitive, so don't wait. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com.
This was Prime Minister Carney after his talks with Premier Ford. Let's play it.
Prime Minister, can we get an update on how trade talks are going? How are they going?
Good morning. Bonjour.
How are trade talks going?
Actually, I'm just going to meet with Minister LeBlanc. We'll have a discussion of that and important discussion with Premier Ford this morning on a variety of aspects for the Ontario economy, the Canadian economy, which of course includes trade but goes much more to the issues that we can control and how we build out from within.
Like what would some examples be?
Well, we'll talk about the housing sector, we'll talk about steel, auto, new sectors of the economy, including artificial intelligence, what we're doing in terms of making Canada competitive.
What's your advice to President Zelensky regarding should he accept any deal?
I gave that advice yesterday in a meeting with President Zelensky and the coalition.
And what was it?
Do you have any comment on Air Canada? Is there anything to say to Air Canada union workers?
I'll say the following. We recognize very much the critical role that flight attendants play in keeping Canadians and their families safe as they travel, comfortable as they travel. And it's important that they're compensated equitably at all times, fairly at all times. That's the reason why there have been negotiations over the course of the last 8 months. It is disappointing that those negotiations did not come to an agreement, and it was the judgment of both the union and the company that they were at an impasse. That's not my judgment, it's their judgment. And so we are in a situation where literally hundreds of thousands of Canadians and visitors to our country are being disrupted by this action. I urge both parties to resolve this as quickly as possible, and the minister will have more to say. Minister Haidoo will have more to say later.
And I had the opportunity to speak with the former National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. Here's how he told me what a massive failure what Trump's done with India is. Here, play this clip.
I got to ask you, what do you think about what's going on with India? Donald Trump said that the first deal that he was going to make was with India. I'm best friends with Modi. And then he just started taking credit for resolving the India-Pakistan war, which is a very big, sensitive topic for India, saying you did not do that. Stop taking credit. He does that every day, and that, like, you know, hurts everything there, and it like crushes them. That's not true. Donald Trump took, like, his family took Bitcoin from the Pakistani Bitcoin sovereign fund, and they brought in the general from the Pakistan to be there. And India's like, what the hell are you doing? And then meanwhile, you still have Apple building new factories because Tim Cook came in with a gold bar and he's building the factories in India. What do you make of what's happening there?
I think this is one of the more underreported stories in Trump's foreign policy, and I'm really glad that you raised it. On a bipartisan basis, going back decades, the United States has worked to build its relationship with India, the world's largest democracy, a country that we should be aligned with on technology and talent and economics and so many other issues, and aligned with in dealing with this strategic threat from China. And we had come a long way on that. And now, in no small part, I think, because of Pakistan's willingness to do business deals with the Trump family, Trump has thrown the India relationship over the side. That is a huge strategic harm in its own right, because a strong U.S.-India relationship serves our interests. But imagine every other country in the world. You're Germany, you're Japan, you're Canada. You look at that and you say that could be us tomorrow. And that only reinforces your view that you got to hedge against the United States. And having all of our friends and countries around the world decide they just can't rely on the U.S. in any way, shape, or form, that is not in the interest of the American people long term. Our word should be our bond. We should be good for what we say. Our friends should be able to rely on us. And that has always been our strength. And what's happening with India right now has huge direct impacts, but it also has this reverberating impact across all of our relationships and partnerships in the world.
I had an opportunity to meet with senior CIA analyst and former CIA spokesperson Ned Price. Here's what he told me about the meeting with Trump and Putin.
And then you have the optics of it all. What President Putin has coveted, especially since President Obama called Russia a quote-unquote regional power in the waning days of his second term, is nothing more than to stand on the same plane as the U.S. president, to stand side by side, to be seen as an equal. And in some ways, President Trump didn't make President Putin come off as an equal. He made him come off as a superior. Again, the pageantry, allowing him to speak first during the press conference, allowing him to set the rules for the press conference where they didn't take questions. President Putin got everything he wanted optically. He got everything he wanted in terms of the imagery. But again, I am most concerned that he got everything he wanted substantively, because he left Anchorage with President Trump firmly in his camp. Even after a day of engagement with the Europeans yesterday at the White House, President Trump hasn't moved off that Russian position. He continues to advocate for it to this very hour.
And Jake Sullivan, former National Security Advisor, also talked with me about how Donald Trump would make these fake deals and how dangerous Trump's fake deals are. Here, play this clip.
These trade deals that Trump announces that aren't on pieces of paper, that he just does via social media posts, and then it gets reported as, okay, I did a deal, but like there's literally no documentation for any of it. Have you in your entire career ever heard of anything like that at all? That's a deal via a social media post with there's no document, nobody knows about it at all, and terms are just made up. And what are the implications of it?
Never seen it. And, we've already immediately seen the implications of it. Just take Japan, for example. He goes out and says, we got this deal with Japan. Japan's going to pay this amount of money. I get to decide what happens with the money, et cetera, et cetera. And the Japanese come out and say, no, that's not our understanding of the deal within hours. So if you don't actually put the terms down and get both sides to sign on the dotted line, then you're going to have profound misunderstandings about what the terms actually are. And at the end of the day, huge elements of this will never get implemented. And that's a problem, because here you have the president touting all these so-called successes, but then our trading partners saying basically, our understanding of the deal is totally different from that. And we're not bound to the kinds of claims that President Trump is making in his social media posts. This is no way to run a railroad, and it certainly isn't going to serve the interests of the U.S. All it's going to do is end up with these tariffs at heightened levels that are going to directly increase the costs of goods that Americans buy and take more money out of their pocketbooks, with these just kind of vague promises of what we're getting on the other side of it. I've never seen anything like it, and I think it is not a way to do business.
Powerful statement out from the Prime Minister of the Republic of Bulgaria right now, saying security guarantees for Ukraine should include sustainable support from both the European Union and the U.S. We welcome President Trump's commitment. They just say that knowing that Trump is not actually committed to it. Then it says, today the coalition of the willing emphasized the main task of stopping the killings and supporting a lasting and just peace based on the principles of international law. Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, writes, Australia continues to stand with Ukraine. Tonight, I took part in another meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, hosted by Starmer, Macron, Friedrich Merz, Giorgia Meloni, and other Democratic leaders. Australia welcomes ongoing efforts toward achieving a just and enduring peace, including yesterday's discussion in Washington. Donald Trump has so thoroughly disrespected Australia also. Australia hates Donald Trump right now. The idea of Donald Trump getting rid of AUKUS, the Australian-UK-US agreement on nuclear weapons. Australia, a lot of Australians regretted doing that deal in the first place. Anyway, Trump's making them regret it even more right now as the US is kind of holding them hostage. Also, Trump just not meeting with Anthony Albanese, but it's not Albanese's fault. I mean, Trump's a maniac, authoritarian nutbag. Like, I don't think Albanese should meet with Donald Trump. You have Sky News in Australia, which is their Fox. It's owned by the Murdochs. And they're like, it shows weakness by Albanese that he's not met with Donald Trump. Screw that. Stand up to that fascist. Why would you want to meet with that? Why would you want to go to the White House in that gold, gaudy bordella of freaking disgust? It's just overall gross. Meanwhile, Ukraine, President Zelensky continues to build alliances. He posted how he reached out to the European Council Commissioner, Antonio Costa, and he goes on to say how Ukraine's working very closely with Europe, Ukraine, Europe, one and the same right now, standing shoulder to shoulder and side by side. I'll bring you in too so you could hear what Premier Ford had to say about his meeting with Carney, because I think it also just shows you there, conservative premier, provincial level, liberal prime minister, but they work together. Here, play this clip.
We said, that we can never predict what Donald Trump is going to do, but we can predict how we can create the environment and the conditions for companies to come here and invest in direct foreign investment. The numbers came out a little while ago. Mind you, it was 2024. We had 409 companies, $39.875 billion, and 25,000 jobs created in Ontario. But keep in mind, that's before Donald Trump. So we have to beat him at his own game and make sure that we're more competitive and onshore as many products as possible.
So did you guys agree to any concrete action on that front today?
We had a great discussion. Nothing happens immediately in that room, but we're on the same page. We have a great partnership. and we're going to work jointly together to make sure that we're competitive and we create jobs.
How likely is it, do you think, we're going to get a deal right now, percentage-wise? What would you put on the chances of Canada and the U.S. getting a trade deal?
Well, the main one is the USMCA CUSMA deal. That's really the main one. But in the meantime, we have to hold firm and we have to create the environment. For instance, the steel sector. You know, the steel sector, we have to look at the large infrastructure projects, shipbuilding, where Algoma up in Ontario, they do the flatbed steel, and make sure that large scale infrastructure projects like a pipeline, the steel pipes come from Ontario.
Was your sense from the Prime Minister now that Canada just has to accept that we're going to have tariffs from the United States until we renegotiate USMCA? Like, is there any movement on getting those removed?
Well, I won't speak for the Prime Minister. What I can tell you, we're united on the message of let's start worrying about how we can be competitive here. Donald Trump is so unpredictable. I don't even know if he knows what he's doing tomorrow morning. So let's start focusing on creating that environment.
But is there an acceptance? Is there an acceptance, I guess, from leaders that we'll just have the tariffs?
Again, the Prime Minister will speak on that, but the President is unpredictable. He'll come out with some cockamamie thing tomorrow that we don't even know about.
So
right?
do you think that Mark Carney is being too elbows down in response to that unpredictability?
Not at all. He's doing an incredible job. He's working collaboratively with 12 other premiers and myself, and working as Team Canada. And he's doing a very, very good job, in my opinion. Put in his position, dealing with Donald Trump. We'll stop worrying about Donald Trump. We'll start focusing on Ontario and Canada and all the other provinces and territories.
Premier, today is Pierre Poilievre's by-election. If he gets elected, I'm wondering, what's your advice to him going into the fall sitting of the Parliament?
Work with the Prime Minister.
How so?
Let's Team Canada. You know, let's put our political stripes aside and start working together collectively on large infrastructure projects, on other areas that he can cooperate with the government.
Last question. Would you have plans to meet with Poilievre to push that message and make sure that he is working with the Prime Minister?
All I want to do is move forward collectively as a government. I don't care about political stripes. The person I'm working with right now is the Prime Minister of the day. And as far as I'm concerned, he's doing a really, really good job considering the position he's been put in. I challenge anyone to try to deal with Donald Trump, myself included. He's a different type of cat. But we're united. We know what we need to do. And we know that we need to cut the regulatory burdens off of companies, lower taxes, put money back into people's pockets, support companies that need investment to grow and expand here, and onshore the procurement side. It's absolutely critical.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. World leaders are absolutely furious. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.